On that morning, Dr. Henry Theodore stumbled upon a leopard cub trapped in an oil pit, and he had already resigned himself to it being his last day documenting devastation. For 43 hours, the 4-month-old cub had been nearly motionless in the abandoned petroleum reservoir. Her golden fur had vanished beneath a thick, suffocating layer of crude, leaving only a slick, blackened shape. She had stopped struggling more than a day earlier. Her cries for help had faded into silence. Even the instinct to fight had abandoned her 12 hours before. Now, she simply waited. Her tiny body rested half submerged in the toxic sludge, lungs drawing poison, eyes burning until sight itself seemed swallowed by darkness. The oil had stripped away everything recognizable about her. No rosettes, no softness, no warmth, just a shadowed figure, releasing weak, uneven breaths that might be her last. She had tried to escape. Tiny claws bled against the slick walls. She had called for her mother until her voice broke and disappeared. But the pit was too deep, the oil too thick, her body too small. Eventually, instinct offered no solutions, and she gave up. Head resting against the shallow edge, eyes burning, she surrendered, waiting for her heart to stop. If you believe in the power of compassion, in the possibility of miracles, and in the idea that a single moment can change everything, subscribe. Every subscriber helps keep true wildlife rescues alive and reminds the world why protecting animals matters. Henry did not believe in miracles. He believed in proof. Evidence. Hard documentation of destruction, the kind that might force anyone to care. For 6 days, he had photographed the devastation left by an illegal oil operation along the Nigeria-Cameroon border. Poisoned soil, dead vegetation, contaminated streams, silence where life had thrived. Each image echoed the personal loss he was still running from. 18 months earlier, his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, had drowned while he was trapped in traffic. He had arrived 2 minutes too late. 2 minutes he could never recover. His marriage fell apart in the aftermath. Since then, he had buried himself in overseas disaster work, using crises to avoid facing his own grief. Nigeria had seemed straightforward. Fly in, document, report, fly home. Clean, clinical, detached. But reality was worse than expected. 12 oil pits scarred the land, each lethal. Wildlife had been obliterated. Streams ran black. Nothing green survived near the largest pit. That morning, his last on sight, he walked the perimeter one final time and heard it, a faint, labored sound, barely audible, nearly gone. Henry froze. The sound came from the deepest pit, still filled with oil. The responsible company had collapsed, leaving death behind. He approached cautiously. At first, the surface reflected nothing. Then it moved, a small shape clinging to the far edge, barely breathing. 8 shallow breaths in 30 seconds. Critical. Dying. Henry didn't hesitate. He dropped his camera, grabbed his rope, and descended into the pit without thinking. The oil burned, fumes clawed at his lungs, each step deeper a fight. Up close, she was heartbreakingly small, coated head to paw, barely alive. He touched her, and her eyes opened gold, bright, aware. Recognition passed between them. Not hope, just understanding. She was no longer alone. He lifted her against his chest and climbed out, muscles burning, hands shaking. Her weak heartbeat pressed against his own. In the sunlight, as he gently turned her, the oil revealed what had been hidden: rosettes. A leopard cub. Rules and protocols mattered nothing. Those golden eyes mirrored the look his daughter had once given him. Every precaution dissolved. He gathered her into his arms and ran to his truck. On a tarp, he began cleaning her desperately. Water alone slid uselessly across her fur. He found a bottle of strong dish soap, working it carefully into her coat, section by section. Slowly, the black grime gave way, revealing the golden fur beneath, the perfect black rosettes, the unmistakable beauty of a wild creature. She was dying. Breaths dangerously slow. Body temperature plummeting, dehydrated, exhausted, poisoned. Any one factor might kill her. Combined, they nearly would. Henry worked with precision, suctioning fluid from her nose and mouth, cleaning her eyes, ears, and paws. He wrapped her in a clean towel and pressed her to his bare chest, sharing warmth. She was icy at first, but gradually heat returned. Tiny drops of electrolyte water coaxed down her throat. She swallowed barely, but enough. For 6 hours, Henry remained almost motionless, holding her in the truck bed shade, meticulously cleaning the remaining oil, providing fluids, watching for every sign of life. By noon, her breathing stabilized. Not healthy, but steady. Her pulse strengthened. She was alive. Henry whispered, "Not this time. This time I'm not late." Her ear twitched slightly, a small, faint response. She could hear him. She was still processing, still fighting. 18 months of despair and self-blame began to shift. Henry adjusted the towel, held her closer, and started planning methodically how to keep her alive, testing whether miracles could still exist. Behind them, the pit lay quiet, hiding the evidence of 43 hours of struggle, but in his arms, proof of survival breathed. By the third day, when her eyes opened fully, he named her Susan. Nestled in blankets, slowly regaining her shine, she was not yet safe. Survival odds for orphan leopard cubs under 5 months were grim, even worse after toxin exposure. He should have turned her over to a proper rehabilitation center. He should have followed protocol, but he could not walk away. Every morning, Henry woke with Susan pressed against his chest, her small body warm, her purr vibrating through him. Every morning, he promised himself he would make the call. Every morning, he didn't. The truth frightened him. For the first time since losing Emma, Henry felt needed. Susan depended on him, her body heat to survive cold nights, his hands to prepare her formula every 3 hours, his voice when she cried for the mother she had lost. She needed him fully, urgently, completely. On the 4th morning, Susan tried to stand. Legs wobbling, tail stiff for balance, she took a step, then collapsed, clearly annoyed by gravity. Henry knelt beside her, feeling the sharp spine beneath his hand, evidence of her weight loss. "Easy," he murmured. "Your body needs time." She chirped a sound half meow, half call. The first sound that wasn't pain. "Okay," he whispered. "We'll do it together." For an hour, they practiced. Stand, step, fall. He caught her each time. She rested, then tried again. By midday, she could walk 15 feet. He rewarded her with a hearty feeding, after which she climbed into his lap, kneading his thigh, and fell asleep. Henry stayed still, hand on her side, counting breaths. This was his life now, shared survival, not grief or documentation. Then his phone rang. Susan startled, letting out a tiny, experimental growl. It was Patricia. He hesitated, but Susan nudged his hand. He let the call go to voicemail. Later, for now, he stayed. Days settled into rhythm. Susan grew stronger, eyes brightening. She rode on his shoulders during morning walks, purring against his neck. Henry spoke of Emma, the lake, the guilt he carried like oil. Susan listened, sometimes pressing a paw to his cheek. One morning, he admitted quietly, "I don't know if I saved you because you needed it or because I did." Susan climbed into his arms, looked him in the eyes, and he didn't feel alone. She lifted one small paw, pressing it to his mouth, the same gesture she used for milk or comfort, but now it felt like a message. Survival was never solitary. Saving and being saved were intertwined acts, shared equally. By the end of the 2nd week, Susan's transformation was clear. She had gained 2 pounds, her ribs no longer visible. Her coat shone golden in the sun, smooth and resilient. She could sprint short distances, still uncoordinated but unmistakably leopard. She climbed low ledges and stalked his boots and shoelaces, practicing the skills that would one day make her a predator. Henry realized she needed more than he could give: space, challenge, climbing, hiding, real prey, most importantly, her mother. She was young enough that reunion was possible. Female leopards were relentless in searching for lost cubs. If her mother survived, she might still be out there. On the 16th day, Henry made his decision. He would not send Susan to a rehabilitation center where she would grow up behind fences. He would find her mother and return her to the life she was born to live, even though every selfish part of him wanted to keep her safe forever. That afternoon, he set camera traps around the oil pit. He recorded fresh tracks near a water source too large for Susan. Adult female. Scratch marks on acacia trees marked her territory. Her mother had not abandoned her. She had been searching. That night, Henry lay in his tent with Susan sprawled across his chest, preparing himself for the inevitable loss. "Your mother is out there," he whispered. "I'm going to find her, and it's going to hurt more than anything since Emma." Susan purred, trusting, unaware of the coming separation. The next morning, the northernmost camera revealed everything. At 2 a.m., a full-grown female leopard walked straight to the lens and paused, staring as if she knew exactly what she was looking for. Henry zoomed in, alert, focused, desperate, the face of a mother refusing to stop searching. Susan, meanwhile, batted at a leaf inside the tent, oblivious. Releasing her terrified Henry. What if her mother rejected her? What if she smelled too human? What if she died alone? Then he remembered Emma, the machines, the doctor saying she was comfortable now. Now, he would not choose fear again. Susan belonged in the wild. He belonged learning to live with loss. Okay, he whispered. Let's find your mother. The search lasted 6 days. Susan rode on his shoulders, communicating through movement, pressure, and vocalizations, sensing the gravity of the mission. On the 22nd day, everything changed. Susan went rigid on his shoulders, a low sound emerging from her chest, ancient, instinctive. The bush fell silent. Before he could react, she leapt. Henry chased, crashing through thorns, propelled by memory and fear. He reached a clearing. Susan sat perfectly still. 10 feet beyond, a massive adult female leopard muscles coiled, eyes gold stood. Mother and cub locked eyes. Susan took 3 tentative steps and chirped, a call for safety. The mother responded instantly. A low, vibrating sound said everything. Susan ran, and they collided in a tangle of fur. The mother licked, sniffed, reassured herself her cub was alive. Susan climbed onto her mother's back, rubbing faces, kneading paws, releasing high, trembling sounds of joy. Henry stood frozen, tears streaming, witnessing the miracle he had fought to make possible. Susan was home. His purpose, the reason for the past 3 weeks, had reached its conclusion. The mother lifted her head and fixed Henry with her golden gaze. He tensed, expecting aggression, but she walked toward him direct, deliberate, confident. Susan stayed behind, calm and secure. The mother stopped 6 feet away, sat, tail curled, eyes locking with his, not hostile, not fearful, but intense, aware, acknowledging. Henry knew he should stay still. Every instinct, every rule said so. But her gaze held him, beyond fear, beyond training. This wasn't threat assessment, it was recognition. She rose slowly, taking 3 deliberate steps forward. Now only 3 feet away, Henry noticed the individual whiskers trembling with each breath. Faint scars on her shoulder, badges of survival in a ruthless world. Her breathing had steadied, tension replaced by purpose. With careful resolve, Henry extended his hand, palm down. She studied it, then his face. Slowly, she leaned forward and pressed her nose to his skin. 3 seconds. Warm breath. A living connection, a bridge between species he never imagined. She withdrew, looked at him once more, in acknowledgement, then returned to her cub. With gentle precision, she lifted Susan by the scruff, the way a mother carries a newborn. Susan hung relaxed, utterly safe. At the clearing's edge, the mother paused and glanced back. Their eyes met for 5 long seconds. Then she disappeared into the bush, taking her cub and Henry's purpose with her. The clearing fell silent. Henry stood alone as the sun dipped, his heart simultaneously shattered and mended. He didn't move for a long time. As dusk deepened, he finally lowered his hand and reached for his phone. Fingers trembling, he scrolled past names that no longer mattered and stopped on one that did. Patricia. This time, he pressed call. She answered on the second ring. Henry, I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? I am, he said softly. I wasn't ready before. I had to do something first. Are you ready now? She asked. He looked toward the trees where Susan had vanished. I think so. I need to tell you about a leopard cub I pulled from an oil pit. About saving her and how she saved me. About letting her go even though I wanted to keep her forever. Tell me, Patricia replied, voice trembling with hope. And he did. He walked back toward camp, recounting every moment. As he spoke, the weight he had carried for 18 months didn't vanish, but it shifted, something he could hold rather than something crushing him. You weren't late, Patricia said quietly when he finished. Traffic held you up. We destroyed ourselves over something that wasn't your fault. I should have left earlier, Henry whispered. No, she said firmly. You did everything right. Some things can't be fixed. That doesn't make us failures, it makes us human. I miss her every moment, he admitted. I know, Patricia replied. But we can't keep punishing ourselves. That cub lived because you could help her. Emma didn't, because sometimes love isn't enough. That doesn't erase the love. They talked until the stars filled the sky. No promises, only one agreement. To keep calling, keep answering. That night, Henry lay alone in his tent. The empty space beside him felt vast. He scrolled through photos. Susan's struggle, first steps, shared sleep. Evidence not of destruction, but of healing. He sent Patricia the photo of Susan's reunion with her mother. "We can heal," he wrote. Her reply came instantly. "Yes. Come home." The next morning, Henry packed his camp with steady hands, ready to return to Seattle, to empty apartments, to the fragile possibility of rebuilding with Patricia. He needed to stop running from grief and start moving toward whatever came next. Before leaving, he returned to the clearing one last time. He did not expect to see them. Leopards roamed vast territories. They were likely gone. Yet he needed to feel that moment again, the moment a wild creature chose to acknowledge him. The clearing was quiet. Morning sunlight filtered through acacias, birds called, insects hummed. Life continued, indifferent to human sorrow or healing. Henry stood in the center, committing every detail to memory: the angle of light, the shade of grass, the sound of the wind. Then he saw them. Partially in shadow at the far edge, the mother sat calmly beside her cub. Susan crouched on a piece of bark, her body already graceful, movements precise and instinctual. She noticed Henry and flicked her ears in recognition, beginning to move toward him for a proper farewell. A short maternal call froze Susan mid-step. She looked between Henry and her mother, caught between the human who had saved her and the leopard who had given her life. Her mother touched her gently with a paw, a command, "Stay." Susan obeyed. Yet she lifted a small paw, holding it aloft, a gesture Henry knew well, used for comfort and closeness. From 50 feet away, it was something more. A wave, a farewell, a thank you. They had saved each other. They were returning to the lives they were meant to live. Henry raised his own hand in return, throat too tight for words. He lingered, memorizing the image of Susan, healthy, wild, exactly where she belonged. Then he turned and walked away, carrying the moment within him forever. Unlike Emma's memory, this one healed. 3 months later, Henry returned to Nigeria for a follow-up environmental assessment. The oil pits were being remediated, the legal case resolved. His organization required updated documentation. Camera traps in the same area where he had searched for Susan's mother held his heart in suspense. On the 17th day, one camera captured it. A large adult female leopard, strong, confident, alive. Behind her, a young leopard 7 months old, nearly as large, moved with fluid grace. She paused, golden eyes catching the infrared light, then disappeared into the forest. Henry replayed the clip repeatedly. He couldn't prove it was Susan. She had grown fully wild, but those eyes, intelligent, golden, alive, free. He sent the footage to Patricia. She made it. She is exactly what she was meant to be. And maybe we can be, too. Her reply. She is beautiful. You saved her. Now come home and let me help save you. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. That night, under the African stars, Henry pulled out Emma's photograph for the first time in months. Her smile, her bright eyes different from leopard gold, yet equally alive, flooded him with grief, now tempered with acceptance. "I wish I could have saved you," he whispered. "I tried. I loved you with everything I had. That has to be enough. You have to be enough. The time we had has to be enough." The night settled around him, alive with the sounds of creatures hunting, hiding, living, dying, following their wild purposes without guilt, regret, or second-guessing. Henry sat among it all, a man who had learned that salvation worked both ways. Sometimes what you rescue, rescues you, too. Real love meant doing the hard thing, even when it broke your heart. He would return to Seattle tomorrow, to try again with Patricia, to live with loss instead of being consumed by it. He would fail, succeed, struggle, and try again. Because a leopard cub that should have died in an oil pit had chosen to live, and her choice reminded him that his own life was worth living. Being 2 minutes late once did not define him forever. Saving one life could not erase another lost, but it proved he was still capable of being the man he wanted to be. As Henry packed Emma's photograph and prepared for sleep, a young leopard climbed a tree beside her mother, gazing at the star-filled sky. She did not remember the man who had saved her. She did not need to. She was wild again, free again, exactly as she was meant to be. And because she was free, Henry could finally be free too. Some miracles aren't about achieving the impossible, they are about accepting the possible. Loving what you can save, forgiving what you cannot, arriving exactly when you arrive, and making that moment enough.